Hello, and welcome to Big Data Analytics with Power BI and Azure Synapse Analytics. My name is Vijay Gopalakrishnan. I'm a senior program manager with the Power BI team and work on the integration between Power BI and Azure Synapse Analytics. So let's talk about what we will be touching on in this session today. We will talk about our vision in this space with regards to how you can leverage Power BI and Azure Synapse Analytics for your big data workloads. We'll also talk about some of the features that show the Power BI and Azure Synapse Analytics better get the story. You will be able to see how you can use these two services to get the best experience with large big data workloads. We'll also touch on some of the existing features that we have. And the reason I want to touch on these was to just talk about how you can use some of the existing features for your big data workloads, and also how some of the upcoming features will provide you with the most value when it comes to analytics. So without further ado, let's talk first about the Power BI data culture, and we'll talk about how do we see the data culture, and how does the Synapse integration, how does it fit in? Then we'll talk about Synapse. We'll do a quick Synapse 101 before we dive into the next pieces. So let's start with the Power BI piece. Right, so at Power BI, our vision is that data culture is for any scale. Right, at the core, we believe in amazing data experiences, and that everywhere decisions are made, we want to provide the best experiences. As you can see, we have these different facets where we are working on. And in particular, in today's session, we will be talking about the data stack. And more importantly, we will talk about how we are providing a tight integration with Azure Synapse Analytics, and how the two services, when used together, provide great performance with big data workloads. Let's dive into the Azure Synapse Analytics world, and let's do a quick 101. So for those of you who've used Azure Synapse Analytics, I also want to talk a bit here about Azure Synapse Analytics. Let me first introduce Azure Synapse Analytics here. Right, Azure Synapse Analytics is the Azure SQL Data Warehouse evolved. Right, we've got a new, whole new level of performance, a whole new level of capabilities. You got limitless analytics service. You got different flavors even within your, in the way you use SQL. So let's dive into that and see what, how does this fit in, right? For those of you who are familiar with the modern data warehouse platform, this has traditionally been the diagram when it comes to end-to-end analytics, right? You have on the left, you have different data sources. You have on-prem data. You got data in different cloud sources. You got data from different devices, from different SaaS. And the traditional way has been to ingest this using Azure Data Factory, transform the data as needed in Databricks, and then it was store it in the data lake. And then you would use the Azure SQL Data Warehouse to model and serve it, and then visualize this data in Power BI. Right now, the place where all this has evolved is now all the part from the ingestion to the analysis part all comes within Azure Synapse Analytics. So it's all tightly integrated. Everything happens within the service, and we'll see that in a few seconds. We'll talk about the the architecture in a bit, but you would essentially perform all the services within Azure Synapse Analytics, be it ingestion, be it data transformation, be it analyzing your data. All this can be done within Azure Synapse Analytics. And for those of you who have you already used the Synapse Studio and have tried out Synapse Analytics, you have seen this. You can do all these pieces within the Synapse Studio easily, and without any additional effort needed. And also, you would have noticed that you can consume the results from these analysis using Power BI within the Synapse Studio. When we get to the demonstration, we'll show how we can use Power BI within the Synapse Studio. For the architecture here, so as we had spoken about, the different flavors that you have is all this Azure Synapse sits on Azure Data Lake. So all your, you have your data going back and forth. You have all the services enmeshed within Synapse. Here you have management, security, monitoring, Metastore. But also, if you look, now you have the ability to run the analytics engine of your choice. You can choose to run SQL, or you can choose to run Spark. If you choose, you can choose to run provisioned, which is more like a reserved capacity, or you could decide to use something that's on demand, serverless, where you have a pay-as-you-go model. You also have compatibility with different languages, as you can see, and you can have all these experiences within the Synapse Studio. So it's an easy, great way to do your end-to-end analysis within a single service without having to go back and forth. And within the list of connected services, as you can see, today we're going to talk about Power BI. You have a set of different connected services, and we'll talk about the Power BI integration today, and and how you can utilize Power BI and Synapse Analytics to get the best out of both worlds. So in this particular case, I'd like to now do a quick demonstration of Power BI and Azure Synapse Analytics. I want to talk about where we are today, right? I want to talk about what can you do in Synapse today? How can you use your existing Power BI assets? How can you create new assets? How can you, make changes, save them, and essentially share that with the rest of your teammates? So let's look at this. What I have open here is the Synapse workspace. I've done some homework here. I've sort of gone ahead and created a database for us, and I've populated it with some tables and views so that we can essentially look at the Power BI integration parts here. Once we start, right, let's look at the database first, right? Here in the data tab, I have the SQL pool, which is pre-populated with data. You also have a couple of views. And what we'll do now is let's go to the develop tab, right? In the develop tab, as you can see, there's a couple of SQL scripts that we've run against this, but there is no Power BI yet. And the reason is because we haven't linked a Power BI workspace. The first step towards this integration is to link a Power BI workspace to the Synapse workspace. And that's what we're going to do now, is we're going to start a new link. We're going to connect to Power BI. You've got several of the services, but here on the top, you can see this Power BI, connect to Power BI. Let's give it a name. Let's call it Synapse Demo. Now, when you go to the workspace names, you'll see it shows you all the workspaces you have access to, right? So you can choose the workspace that you want to link and create. This would be the first step towards using Power BI and Synapse together, right? You can essentially, now you have a place where you can publish your reports, a place where you can consume. So as you can see here, Power BI shows up. I see the workspace that we linked. And also you can see the existing data sets, right? And also let's try pulling up an existing report here. We do have a trip analysis dashboard. So let's try looking at that. So as you saw, you have the ability to look at all your existing Power BI assets in that workspace in Synapse now. And you can see there, it shows the associated data set. Let's go back to the report here. Let's have a look at the report there. So you have the report. you have the ability here to add some visuals. You can make any changes that you want to it within this service, right? And then you save it, and instantly you can essentially everybody else can look at it. More importantly, you can also go to your data set, you can click on a new report, and you will have a blank report that you can work on, right? You can use an existing data set and you can create a completely new report all within Synapse. Now let's look at a different case. Let's say I want to create a new data set based on existing data in my SQL table. How do I do that? Right. So as we saw, we have this SQL pool. We have all these associated tables. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Power BI datasets. I click on new data set. It shows me my SQL pool here, right? What I do here is to download a PBI DS file. So what is a PBI DS file, right? A PBI DS file essentially is like a Power BI template, but what it has is it's pre-connected to the database that we saw here. So the connections have been made previously. So when Power BI Desktop opens up in a minute, you will see that it's not asking you to import data from a SQL source, but rather what would happen is it will directly show you the list of tables that are in that SQL pool that we just saw. So here, so you can see the SQL pool, you can see the tables, you can see the views, right? Let's for simplicity's sake, let's go ahead and choose a few tables from these that we can take, right? And we're going to load them. We're going to create a new data set, which is direct query mode. We're going to create a new data set, right? We're going to publish it in the same workspace that we had linked with Synapse, and then we're going to see that we can go back now to Synapse and then start creating new reports using those. You can essentially use the data set in Synapse and consume this data in Synapse. So let's see there. Now you can see that all the data is here. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to save this file, right? And then once I save it, as we said, we're going to go ahead, publish it in the same workspace. So let's do that. Let's give it a demo VNN name there. I'm going to now go ahead. I'm going to publish it in the same workspace, right? So we did Synapse demo WS. We're going to choose the same one. Great. We're waiting. Let's look at it. It's going to be published any second now. And once it's published, we'll go to Synapse and then we'll be able to consume it there. So there, it's published. Now let's go back to Synapse. I'm going to close this. And when I click on datasets there, you see the demo V1 dataset. Click on it. And you can essentially start using the dataset here to create your reports. So today you can consume data in Synapse and you can create your own reports. You can create your data sets. You can, as we saw, you can use existing assets. You can link your workspaces and you can make any changes that you want within Synapse and save it. And then you're instantly propagating that information for all the other users who want to use the same report. So with that being said, let's now dive into the next section, which is the pillars of integration. So we spoke about this a bit. We spoke about what is our vision in this space. How do we envision the integration between Synapse and Power BI, and how do we provide the best experience for our customers? When it comes to the vision in the space, we are looking at it, we're taking a three-pronged approach. The first one is performance at scale, right? How do we give you great performance? How do we enhance your performance? How do we make direct query great for you so that when you run your big data analytics, you are seeing blazing fast performance and you're getting instant results, how do you make sure that your time to insights is low? So when we talk of performance at scale, and we'll talk about some of these features in this session, we will touch on some of these features that are going to make it blazing fast for you. Secondly, we are looking at integrated monitoring and security. In this pillar, we are looking at how do we provide you with an end-to-end view of your analytics process. Now, why is this important, right? So let's say I'm running a visual today and I notice that it's slow. Now today I have to take multiple steps. I have to determine where the bottlenecks are. I have to go back and forth between different tools to determine this. With integrated monitoring, what we want to give you is a single pane of glass where you can go, you can look at the different pieces. For example, if I have a visual rendered in my report, then I would go, I would essentially, if I made a change, I would trigger a DAX query. The DAX query in direct query mode would trigger off a couple of SQL queries that are then going to go hit the direct query source. They're going to run the queries, get the right data, bring them back to Power BI, and then Power BI is going to refresh the visual, right? In this process, we want to give you this complete end-to-end process. We want to give you all these metrics in a single place. What are the query times? How long does it take to run? What is the wait times? So that you can clearly see where the bottlenecks are. You're not going through multiple services, but you have the ability to consume all of this in one place and quickly make the right amends so that you can get going again, and then you start getting better performance again. This is our goal to provide you with faster time to insights. This is yet another space where we think we would, by doing this, you would have less of a downtime. You would be able to monitor quickly. You would get you'd be able to get much faster time to insights. And then how do we keep you secure, right? How do we keep the data secure? Given that we're going between Power BI and Synapse, how do we make sure that it's all secure? And lastly, we also want to give you great web authoring experience. So when you run your analysis, when you run and get some results from your SQL pool or your Spark, we want to make sure that we give you functionalities within Synapse Studio so that you can create some early reports, have some have a look at the results, make sure that it all falls in place, get some early insights, and then ship it off to the Power BI report creator to perhaps get the more advanced, more complex reports. But then this would be a great way for you to be able to do some of those functionalities that's in Power BI Desktop today within Synapse. So therefore, it's a great way again to make sure that you can consume your results within Synapse, and you can do some of the operations so that you can do a quick check, make sure things are fine, that everything falls in place, and then you ship it off to the creator. Again, yet another way to make sure that you get faster time to insights. With that being said, we will dive into two pillars today, given that we have an hour of time. I'd like to talk about performance at scale, and I'd like to talk about a feature in integrated monitoring. So let's start off with performance at scale, right? Within performance at scale, we'll talk about a couple of features. We'll talk about the performance accelerator, the Power BI performance accelerator for Synapse. We'll talk about some query fusion, and then we'll also talk about composite models. Now, composite models is an existing feature. You can leverage that today, but I want to highlight it given its importance in the big data analytics space. So let's start with the Power BI Performance Accelerator. And before that, I'd like to sort of set the stage here so that we get a better feel for why the Performance Accelerator provides the value that it is providing, right? So in this slide, what you're seeing here is anytime you get a query from Power BI, direct query hits Synapse, the optimizer takes a decision in Synapse, the query optimizer, if the query should hit the materialized view or the table. And the optimizer is smart enough to do that. And when I say that, the optimizer does not, so the query by itself does not have to refer to the view, right? The optimizer decides, even if the query refers to a table, the optimizer can decide and determine if the best path or the fastest path forward would be to redirect that query to a materialized view as opposed to a base table. Right, so a quick 101, just want to touch on this. Again, materialized view, great, pre-compute, stores, maintains data. Now, the big advantage here with this feature is the materialized views are automatically updated when the data in the underlying table changes, right? This is a synchronous operation. So every time data changes in your underlying tables, the materialized view is automatically updated. This is very important, and the reason for that is because it automatically updates, you can be assured that when the queries from Power BI hit the materialized view, they are actually hitting the most updated data. Right, you don't have a problem with data freshness. There is no stale data. Anytime there's a change in the table, the materialized views are updated, so you get the most updated data, right? Let's look at a few examples to see how materialized views, can greatly provide value here. So let's look at this case here, right? We got a query that gives you the year total sales per customer, right? Now, if you look at the right, if you look at the query plan, you'll see a lot of shuffles, a lot of joins, right? And that's because you are looking at multiple tables, you're doing a lot of joins. When we ran this as is, right, when it hits, these multiple tables, it took 103 seconds, right? So then what we did was we went ahead and created, some materialized views. We had an index view here, and we said, let's go back. Now that we've sort of done this, let's go back and see what is the effect of having these materialized views in the system. Now, when I go back here, right, I run the same query. As we said, now the query does not reference the view directly, right? It's the same query, it's been referenced in the tables, but the optimizer now determines that the best path forward and the fastest path forward for the query is to redirect the query to the materialized view as opposed to the base table. So here you can see we're done with 3 joins, right? Takes 6 seconds. Wow, 103 seconds to 6 seconds, right? And this is much faster. This is a great example of how you can use materialized views to enhance your performance. Now, all this that we did here, right, was done manually, right? I had to go and I had to understand which columns was I hitting, which tables was I hitting, what am I looking at? Then I had to create the materialized views based on what I understood from these queries. And then I was able to bring down my time from 103 seconds to 6 seconds. But that is time consuming, right? It's an iterative process. I have to look at everything. I have to, it's going to take me time to understand my patterns. It's going to take me time to create these materialized views. And then more importantly, every time my pattern changes, right? If I decide to look at different tables, if I add a table, if I'm looking at a different column, then I will have to go ahead and revise my materialized view so that I'm still getting the same optimal performance. And this is where the performance accelerator with Synapse materialized views really adds value, right? So how does it work and what is the value that it adds? All these steps that we saw prior to this slide, where we had to go through the process of understanding the tables, the columns, understanding which materialized views to create. All this is done by the performance accelerator. The way it works is when you when you make them, when you run these reports in Power BI collects these query patterns. Power BI understands which columns you're hitting, which tables you're hitting. So Power BI has a good feel for what is your use pattern. Power BI takes that, right, and sends it to Synapse. Now Synapse takes this information, determines that based on the patterns that you sent to Synapse, it can now it will create a set of materialized views that best serve these patterns, right? So what's going to happen now is, because Synapse has taken these patterns into consideration, created those materialized views, now you're going to get a blazing fast performance when you use this Power BI reports, because as we saw before, you might trigger the same SQL query, but then it's going to hit the materialized view as opposed to the table itself. So very similar to the benefit that you saw in the earlier slide, where we went from 103 seconds to run it to 6 seconds, you would be able to leverage the same benefit here, but just by simply enabling this feature in Synapse Studio. We're still working on it. We're working on a private preview right now, but we will, we'll soon come out with announcements about, what are the next steps here. But as you can see, this will greatly, diminish the time taken to create materialized views and do it. And the second part of it is, well, it's automatic creation. You also benefit from automatic maintenance. And when I say that, we understand again that your work pattern might change, right? You might start looking at new columns. You might add a visual that looks at a new column. You might actually add another table or derive information from another table. To accommodate for that, what we do is we have a training schedule that you can set in Synapse Studio when this is available. And what that would do is, on a regular basis, it would take this data from Power BI, the query patterns, and it would now send it to Synapse. Synapse can do three things. Synapse either drops some views saying these are no longer valid because I don't see them being utilized based on the patterns. Synapse can add new views saying, hey, I noticed that there's a change in the pattern, so let me go ahead and create some new materialized views that address this new query patterns. And lastly, Synapse might say, you know what, I mean, there's not really a whole lot of change, so that's fine, we're not going to do anything. So as you can see, it's automatic creation, automatic maintenance, right? And all this happens with a single click of a button, right? So this is one great example of how Power BI and Synapse are working better together to give you great experience when it comes to big data analytics, and how to simplify what we saw could have been a tedious process, going back and forth and trying to create those materialized views. Great. So let's go to the next one, which we spoke about, which is Query Fusion. Oh, sorry. Prior to that, I'd like to demonstrate, and I have a quick 2-minute demonstration that will show the value of the performance accelerator. So what I have here, as you can see, is it's a New York taxi data. What I have here is a trip dashboard. As you can see, you have a monthly sales summary. I'm going to look at hourly revenue rates. Also, I'm going to look at sales summary based on the region, right? What we're going to do here is, now this report is connected to a data source. The data source currently does not have any materialized views, does not have the performance accelerator enabled, what we're going to do is look at the results prior to enabling this feature. Then we're going to go back, enable this feature, and then we're going to come back and see how did the creation of materialized views affect our results and our time to render the visuals. Okay, so let's look at this. Like I said, we'll use this dashboard. We'll use the performance analyzer. I'm going to start recording. I'm going to refresh the visuals, right? And we're going to let it spin. So while it's happening, let's look at the database here. I got a sales and revenue database. I got loads of tables in there. There we go. So I got finance, I got geography, revenue, sales, and it's got lots of data, right? So it's this is the database that we have tied back to Power BI. As you can see, it's still spinning, right? I mean, there's lots of data, so clearly it's going to take take a bit of time, as you saw before. So let's give it a few seconds. Let's see, how long it takes. Right, so as it spins, I'm going to make your life easier, and I'm going to give you the numbers here. So as you can see, it took about 70 seconds to get the hourly revenue rate, because it had to hit multiple tables. Now I'm going to go, I'm in SSMS. I'm going to turn this feature on, the performance accelerator, right? I run it. And let's see what happens. Let's look at a list of naturalized views that were created based on this. And these would be distinct. You would be able to see these naturalized views and differentiate between these versus the other ones. So the PBI, MB, these are the ones. So I can see 4, 5, 6, 7 created. Let's go back here and refresh the visuals. Let's see how long it takes. Wow, that's blazing fast. So you can see there, right? We were our slowest query was 70 seconds. Now our slowest is at 5.8, right? And this again, clearly, it's hitting the materialized view. It was so Synapse took the data. Synapse was able to understand which materialized views to create, and you can see the results here. So all the way from 70 seconds to 5.8. Great. Now let's, that being said, so that is Performance Accelerator. All right, now let's look at Query Fusion, and let's talk a bit about what is this feature about, right? So as we had spoken before, anytime you use your Power BI report and you make a change, let's say you change a slicer, right? You instead of choosing USA, Europe, and Middle East, you also add Africa. What happens is Power BI in the background shoots off a DAX query, and this DAX query shoots off multiple SQL queries that then hit the DQ source here, which is Azure Synapse Analytics, the direct query source. Now, with this particular feature, what's happening is, as you can see here, this particular DAX query shot off 5 SQL queries, right? And as you can see with these, there's a pipeline of of queries going from from Power BI to Synapse. So the more number of queries, it's going to take longer for you to get your results back. The intent of this feature is to look at these queries and see if we can fuse some of these queries together. And by fusing, we would essentially have one query in the place of 2. The big benefit that comes out of that is what's going to happen is you're going to combine queries. As in this case, we found a way to fuse query 1 and 2 and 4 and 5. So you had 5, you got 3 queries now instead of 5. So that's going to enhance your experience. It's going to result in faster time to insights again. You're going to get your results back much faster from your DQ sources, and that's going to greatly reduce your visual rendering time, right? So this is another feature that we are working on right now. The third feature that I want to talk about There's an existing feature. I'm sure a lot of you would have heard about it, but nevertheless, I want to touch on it. And the reason being, this is a very important and piece when it comes to big data analytics. This is one of those features that you could leverage to make the most out of and get the benefits of having faster performance between your direct query source and Power BI. So let's look at composite models and what we're talking about. So what we have here is two models, right? We have the same model. We have it in import mode. We have it in direct query mode. So with the composite models, you have the ability to have some of these tables in direct query, and then some of these tables in import mode, and use them together when you want. And let's see a few examples of that here. Let's see how it actually works out. So what we're going to do now first is create a composite model, right? So as you can see, I split them into 4 and 3. The 4 blue tables are in import mode. The 3 white colored tables are in direct query mode, right? So let's now look at let's add another step here, right? I'm going to create an aggregation from the sales table. So in this particular case, let's say the sales table had about 2 linear rows, sales as 1, right? So it's going to give you much faster results with the aggregations. Now let's look at a query, right? What are we doing here is we're summarizing based on date, we're summarizing based on geography, and we are looking at sales, sum of sales. So clearly an aggregated value. What you can see here is all the 3 tables that are being called here are in memory, right? They are in import mode. So it's going to hit the in-memory cache. It's going to give you results. Now let's make a change here, right? Now I want to go ahead and look at my results based on date, sales, and customer name. As you can see now, customer name is not in the import mode. It's in direct query mode, right? Now what happens is it flips. Date now moves into, so if we were to go back to the last slide, date was the import. Now it acts as a direct query table, right? So that, as you can see now, it triggers off a direct query here. But you can see those, it does inner joins, and it gives you the results. So as you can see, composite models are great because now you have the ability to store some of this information in DQ mode, some of them in import mode, and get the best of both worlds, right? Use them together, and again, this is a great way if you have the opportunity to split your workloads, because it's clearly going to you're going to see that some of your queries are going to be faster, the ones that you can put in import, and for the other ones that are in direct query, you can still use the direct query tables. So clearly composite models provides a lot of value when it comes to having these big data workloads. So those were the performance at scale features. So as you can see, each one of them were intended towards increasing the performance levels and decreasing the time taken for the results to return back to Power BI when triggered from a Power BI report. Right? We saw the performance accelerator that leveraged materialized views to make it faster. We saw that with Query Fusion, we reduced the number of SQL queries that were being triggered to make it faster. And then again, with composite models, you saw that you could split your tables, some in import, some in direct query mode, and take advantage of that. So clearly, as you can see, this is we are working towards features that will enhance your experience when it comes to performance. Now, that being said, I'd like to touch on an recently announced feature that's in preview right now, which is bring your own log analytics, a part of the integrated monitoring pillar. So let's talk about this, right? We spoke about end-to-end monitoring. We spoke about how end-to-end monitoring is very important to be able to get a complete end-to-end view with regards to your analytics solution, so that you can quickly identify where your resources are being used. You can quickly determine where the bottlenecks are and take the appropriate action needed to make sure that that is not blocking you from being able to do what you wanted to do efficiently and quickly, right? Bring your own log analytics provides you with that ability. It provides you the ability to link the Power BI log analytics with and integrated with Azure Monitor. So what you're going to have is you're going to have the Synapse log analytics and Power BI log analytics. You can work with them together, and when you have access to both these data and you're able to look at both these data pieces simultaneously, it's very easy for you to then slice and dice your data to determine what are the critical insights that you want to look at, to determine where the bottlenecks are, to determine which particular phase of your analytic solution is consuming the most resources. Going forward, I actually have some quick animations that talk about this feature, that talk about how you can, how you would be able to use it. I mean, given that in this preview phase, and we would sort of soon work on announcing it, but this would give you a feel for what is, how easy it is to set this up. And then we'll also look at being able to consume this information in one place, right? Let's start with this here. So this is your Power BI settings page. What we're doing here is I'm going to go ahead, go to settings, look, there's going to be log analytics, say, hey, connect to Azure, right? It's going to ask you for your Azure subscription. It's going to ask you for your workspace, that you want to connect to, the Azure log analytics workspace. And then, by just saving it, you're linking it right there. And it's very easy to, just come back here and say, I'm done. I can now, I don't want it anymore. Let me go ahead and disconnect it, right? So it's very easy, simple, straightforward. You don't have multiple complex steps to do it. All you got to do is come here, connect it, or come here and disconnect it, and you're good to go, right? Now that we have started flowing this data, right? Let's go to the Azure monitor here. I open a workspace here. I go to logs. Right. Let's go ahead and run a query to get some Power BI data right here. So I ran that. I can run charts now. I can see what's happening. I can see query completed times. I can see percentiles, durations. So I can see everything here in one place. I have the ability to consume all the information from my different resources. I have the ability to now look at the end-to-end analytics solution. I have the ability to determine where my bottlenecks are, and this clearly adds value. We've spoken to customers, and this is something that we have heard from our customers. So we want to make sure that we give you an easy way to monitor your resources. We give you an easy way to troubleshoot, so that you don't have to go to multiple places. You don't have to have multiple tools to look at the different pieces to determine where the problem is. But it's all in a single place, a single pane of glass. You can come here. You can run it. You can run all the queries here. You should be able to connect your Synapse and Power BI data, and in a single go, you will be able to clearly point out the critical metrics that you want to. So with that being said, I know we are about, we got about 13 more minutes, or I guess additional time. So I will convert that to QA time. Happy to take on questions here. And again, great thing, thanks to the Data Platform Summit, and thank you all for coming here. And and please do ask questions. I'd love to take questions from you. I'd love to hear from you on what your thoughts are about all this. Thanks, and have a great day.